Hello everybody, Jake, your resident content cowboy here. Yee to the haw, and it's been about a day. The dust has not even settled. I don't know what dust, after a day, I mean it's settled, but Draft is coming to Pokemon Unite here on Pokemon Day, February 27th of next year, and there's been a lot of positive reception to this and actually some negative reception to this. So I kind of wanted to talk about Draft in general. We'll probably talk about EX Pokemon as well. The pros, the cons, what I think it will do for the game, what's going to be really, really exciting, and maybe what's going to be a little scary for Pokemon Unite. Let's get into it. First, really quick, if you don't know what Draft is used right now inside of Pokemon Unite in their tournament section. It is used in their weekend tournaments as well as the Unite Championship Series competitive scene, where you see both teams ban a Pokemon and then they go back and forth picking. First pick on this side and then 2 picks over here and then 2 picks over here. So you go back and forth picking your Pokemon. What happens is you can't have one of the same Pokemon on either team. So if Team 1 locks in Inteleon, Team 2 does not get to get that Pokemon. And with bans, you get to see both teams take something out of the game that they don't want to face. The way it works in Unite currently is the bans are blind, meaning both teams are banning, not knowing what the other team is going to do. So you could both end up banning the same Pokemon, or you could both end up banning a Pokemon that neither team wanted to pick in the first place. That is the basic draft system inside of Unite. Another couple cool things is you get to see what your opponent's team is before heading into the match, so you get to make some more strategic decisions than you would in our current ranked system, where you don't know if your Clefable is going to be as useful because you don't know how many Pokemon on the other team are going to be dashing. Or you can make use of items that you maybe couldn't before, like Assault Vest. Assault Vest is kind of a cool item, but you run into a really weird problem in ranked, where if you happen to not run into an enemy team with very many special attackers or 0 special attackers, which has happened to me before when I picked that item, you actually have a essentially useless item on your kit. So this is another cool thing that happens because you can see the enemy's team composition. Let's talk about the pros and cons now. At first, really quick, let me just say, we actually don't know the exact form this will be inside the game, but it looks like it's going to be very, very similar to what we have right now. They might slightly tweak some things for ranked to make it a little faster or something like that. But anyway, on to the pros and cons. The first pro, of course, is this is going to make the ranked mode more competitive. It's going to make it more similar to what you would see inside of a competitive version of the game with, you know, the championship series, with a 5 versus 5 match with teams that are set up inside of a tournament. Ranked will more closely look like what you see on the big broadcast for the World Championships, which is really cool. It's going to make players more competitive just naturally, and it's also going to give the community an outlet for a more competitive space inside of Unite. Now, of course, that in itself also presents one of the first cons for this system, and I've seen a lot of players talk about this. They're saying, well, now I can't pick the Pokemon that I want to pick, and that's true. You won't necessarily get to pick the Pokemon that you want, and that is, without question, for the ranked mode of this game. If you like what's there currently, that is definitely a con. You will not be able to just favorite Zeraora, load into the match, most likely get it, and play it inside of your game. It's actually kind of unlikely that that will happen. You could still probably just pick it regardless, but you get what I'm saying. It's less and less likely, and given how teams are picking and banning, it will be discouraged for you to do that. So that is a con. I will say that leads to what might be a huge pro for the game, and that is the fact that this could make standard mode a more viable mode for people to hop into if they're looking for this kind of play style. A lot of the criticism around Unite's ranked mode is that it's sort of a glorified standard mode with a system that sort of ranks you up. It's not as competitive as a lot of people would want it to be. So what you could actually see happening is the standard mode in Pokemon Unite kind of comes back to life with all the players who are just saying, I don't care, I don't want to do the whole pick ban, I just want to pick Cramorant, I want to load into the match, and that's what I want to play. There could be a more vibrant space full of players again that you could go to and play that mode in. And then ranked would be for a more competitive take on the game. Of course, a huge pro also I mentioned before is that you will not be seeing mirror matches inside of Pokemon Unite, which is just really cool. You don't see the same thing on either team, and it really lets you play the game in a much more strategic way, it gives you much more skill expression for your team and your play style, especially if you have a deep pool of Pokemon that you can play. Now you're in such a good spot because you can see what the enemy team is doing and you recognize, oh, I love defenders. I have so many defenders that I'm playing, and I know Trevenant is going to be great into this enemy composition. Whereas before, you're like, I don't know, should I run Trev, Lapras, Umbreon, Slowbro? Like, what am I playing into? Now you get to make more informed decisions, and you can actually see your skill taken to another level. The con that this kind of arrives with is more adherence to a meta. People are going to expect people to be picking and banning and drafting fully based on a meta. It's very, very common in games like this that people know let's say the game has 50, 60 Pokemon or something like that. The game people know the 15 Pokemon that are very, very strong right now and good in this role. And I think what you could have is a little more toxicity inside the game, because people will be more and more upset about some of the picks that people are bringing into matches that aren't super ideal, at least from a meta perspective. You'll think you could have picked any defender, and for whatever reason, you're bringing in Mr. Mime right now instead of all of these great picks. And I think you could get players that are even more toxic inside of this mode. Another con that actually might make standard more appealing is this will make games longer. Not by an insane amount, but you have to go through this whole preparation phase before you load into a match. It's not just selecting your Pokemon and calling your lane. You're picking, banning, drafting against your opponents, changing your items, etc., etc. So this will take longer to get inside of games than we currently have right now. And that's probably not super ideal for some players. Again, it will make standard more appealing, but it will make ranked matches take longer. Of course, the amazing things that happen with this is you get a truer ranked system and you get people playing at a higher skill level. They just naturally will have to. You're also going to see some players who are the kind of player who just spends their whole time not participating in fights and spinning around. They probably won't want to spend a lot of time in this mode because it's not just loading right into the game and getting to play. It actually might discourage some of the more trollish players from playing in this ranked system, and it's going to give you a truer form of ranked inside of Pokemon Unite that a lot of people have been asking for. This will also put players who are of a high skill level who want something like this in a position to queue into the ranked system more often. In general, you could see more top tier players playing the ranked system and more players who don't really like this system hanging out in a standard queue that actually could get a lot more popular. And then, of course, one of the biggest wins in any system like this is you get to ban something that's broken. The game obviously has many moments that are not amazing from a balance perspective, and this gives you the opportunity to go into a match and say, we're just banning Mimikyu, or we're banning Comfey, or we're banning whatever absolute menace is stopping all of these games from being reasonable. We're banning it right now. Or your team is the first pick, and you're like, hey, if they give us Mimikyu, we're going to take it, but of course they won't. They'll ban it, you'll ban Lapras, whatever it is that you want to ban, and you'll head into games with Pokemon that are at the highest level of broken actually shaved off, and you will not see them. Of course, the conversation around EX Pokemon is a whole different can of worms, and I've already opened one whole can of worms. I feel weird opening another can of worms for you right now, but I have seen a lot of thoughts back and forth about this, and I have to say, the EX system inside of Pokemon Unite does feel like a solution to a problem that was created by Pokemon Unite. This EX system is interesting because inside of Pokemon Unite, we haven't dealt with this at all, but of course this is something in the TCG and the VGC, I believe in Pokemon Go as well. So there are different ways of handling super strong Pokemon in all of these games, and there are some interesting ways that they could use this EX license system inside of Unite. One thing we know for sure, these Pokemon have this classification, and that means they could actually do a lot with them. In the first season, they're banning them. In the second season, they are not banning them, and they're bringing in draft. And I think a big reason for that, obviously, is Miraidon and Koraidon coming into the game, without question, will have an EX license, and they want them to be playable in the ranked mode if nobody bans these Pokemon. That all makes sense, especially for their big Pokemon Day release. So the question is, what else can they do with the EX license that would be good for the game? Because at this point, we just have to recognize that legendaries, like box art legendaries, and the way these things perform inside Pokemon is something that they want in Unite, even if it is detrimental at times to game balance. In the VGC, Pokemon are sort of slowly let into the game season after season. Every few months, more Pokemon are kind of let into the competitive scene of the game, and we could actually see them using these EX licenses to have seasons that don't have any EX Pokemon, like we're about to have, or seasons that require an EX Pokemon on a team, or seasons where EX Pokemon give double rewards when they are KO'd inside of a match. There are actually lots of ways that they can tweak these Pokemon now that they have these licenses. It's questionable as to how it's going to all play out. I would just rather the game be as balanced as possible, but I think there are some silver linings to the EX situation that could be really, really cool. I mean, imagine an EX Pokemon, again, for whatever reason, is going to give your team more Eos energy when it's KO'd, more experience when it's KO'd, longer KO timers, etc, etc, etc. That could create some really cool situations where, at least if these Pokemon are powerful, there are more drawbacks to having them on the team, and maybe there are seasons where EX Pokemon are restricted in other ways inside of the game. Without question, my take is draft is very, very positive for the game, and it's going to come with some growing pains, but I'm very excited to see what that looks like. Let me know what you think in the comments, especially having given some time to kind of digest all of what this could mean for the game. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, I love you, and I'll see you all next time.